everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant. As my friend Peter likes to say, the show for executive assistants and the people that love them. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. So today's episode is brought to you by a big mistake that I made just about 10 years ago now. I worked at a company and it was, oh man, we're a startup, we're in startup mode. We're swinging from the rafters. We're making things happen. And they had just hired an IT person and were really in research mode as far as what phone services, if any, they were going to provide everybody. And, they really sold it as this big benefit that instead of getting you a company provided cell phone or a voice over IP or a desk phone, that they were going to give you $100 a month reimbursement toward using your own cell phone, which at the time I was paying $40 a month to be part of my family's cell phone plan. So I was like, absolutely, $100 a month. Yes, this is paying for my cell phone, and that extra $60 is steak money. Let's just call it what it is. And, it felt great for about the first 6 months, but I was the office manager. And I know that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is really dependent on your role, but when you are the office manager, when you're the executive assistant, when you are somebody who interfaces with a lot of external to the company, third parties, vendors, services, people who really want a piece of your executive's time if you're the executive assistant. And at the time it was office manager, but I also supported the executives in the office. So kind of a hybrid office manager, executive assistant role. It is really a hassle to use and give away your own cell phone number, especially when your cell phone number is in your email signature, when it's on your business cards, when it's, just given out like candy, oh, you're not sitting at your desk and somebody else answers your phone for you. And, oh yeah, give her, or not my cell phone, but they answer the door. And they're like, oh yeah, Jess isn't here, but here's her cell phone number. Send her a text, give her a call. My cell phone number, I haven't worked at this company since 2016. And I would say at this point, I get an average of about 5 or 6 calls a week. However, last week, I did have a day where I got about 12 calls in one day. And this is a direct result of, every single external service provider having my cell phone. The Chamber of Commerce had my cell phone number. And if you're familiar with anything that goes on in a Chamber of Commerce, those lists of contacts are given to all chamber members, and they don't necessarily have to be a member for weeks or months or years to get access to that information. That information is then sold to sponsors and all kinds of fun stuff. The number of calls that I get to this day about, hey, do you want to donate to my golf fundraiser? Hey, are you still in business in downtown Minneapolis? Hey, does so-and-so still work at your company? Oh my gosh, I have gotten thankfully, the block feature on phones has gotten so much better. I remember years ago, before I had a smartphone, just a cute little flip phone with some little buttons, you couldn't really, you had to call your cell phone provider to block phone numbers. And now you literally, it'll pop up and say potential spam, especially when the first 6 digits are the same as your phone number. If it's 1234566 XXXX, you can tell that that's somebody spoofing your number or, calling from elsewhere. The spamming technology has definitely gotten more sophisticated, but so has the blocking technology. It'll pop right up and say, this is potential spam. You probably don't want to answer this one. I let it go to voicemail, just immediately click on the recent calls and block it. So things, it's ups and downs, it swings and roundabouts, but I would say giving my personal cell phone number to a company and not putting my foot down and just insisting on a desk phone, a voice over IP, something was a huge mistake. So please, please, please learn from my errors. And again, depending on your role, let's talk about some of those options that might be available to you. Somebody like my husband, I just spoke with him about this last night. He's an internal company guy at the company he works at. He's a software developer. He takes pretty much just internal meetings. Almost everything happens on Microsoft Teams. Very little need for anybody in the company to have access to his cell phone number, which is great for him. If you're somebody who is the office manager interfacing with every external vendor and service that comes through the door, if you're close to an executive, you're going to want to press for a desk phone in an ideal world. And I'll tell you why. I know it feels a little outdated in 2024 to say I want a desk phone, but I will tell you why. And that is just boundaries. It's simple boundaries. Like that's a phone that you can't even necessarily carry around with you unless you get a cordless option. It's something that you leave at the office every day when you clock out for the day. Like those boundaries are just incredible. If you can't get a desk phone, press for a work sponsored device of some sort. Like they can even get you a prepaid phone. Who cares? It doesn't have to be the newest top of the line smartphone with unlimited talk, text, data. God, I'm old enough to remember when, phones used to run different promotions like, oh, call after 6 and you get unlimited minutes, or nights and weekends free, or whatever that might look like. I know cell phone plans are not the same thing that they were 20 years ago when I got my first cell phone. But yeah, getting a work device of some sort that can at the very least make and take phone calls, whether it's a desk phone, whether it's a cell phone, a prepaid phone, whatever, at the very least, bare minimum, get them to sponsor you for a Skype phone number. I think Skype, you can start at like $2-3 a month to have a dedicated phone number. It's really not that expensive, and it is totally worth the separation between your work and your personal device. This is also going to depend a lot based on if you are remote versus working in an office. Personally, I have been remote since 2014. So this is my 10th year of remote work. I do every so often miss my desk phone, just again for those boundaries of like, you leave it where it's at, you run to the bathroom, you're not taking your desk phone with you. You're going to the other end of the office to get some copies or file something, you're not taking your desk phone with you. It's just sitting on your desk. It's cute. It's ringing or not. It has voicemail. You can call people back. It's wonderful. A desk or landline in today's world in 2024 is a little dicey. A lot of people that I know that have a desk phone or a landline phone in their home say that a lot of times they just have to leave it off the hook. They have to put the phone on mute. They just get too many spam and robocalls. At this point, like I said, the spam technology has advanced along with all of the combating the spam technology. So you kind of take the good with the bad, but do whatever's best for you. I think a stationary device is wonderful, even if it is work from home. A second device, it's not ideal, like having a second cell phone that you have to manage. The thing that I do like about that, though, is that it does keep your work and personal life fully separate. Very similar to a desk phone. It's something that you can turn on and off. It's something that you might be required based on whatever your organization or your relationship with your team or manager might be, something that you don't have to have 24/7, something that you don't have to cart around with you. Not ideal to have a second phone that you have to charge, that you have to make sure the bill gets paid, or, that you get your reimbursement on, because in a funky world, you might end up buying your own secondary device and getting reimbursed for that. So, desk phone, second device, not ideal, but at least it gives you some separation. Voice over IP is another option when you're working from home. Options are so good right now. Like I remember 10 years ago, the company that I was working for that had the company I was working at, language is so very important. But I just remember the IT gentleman, his job for the first 6 months was all researching, testing, taking calls and demos for phone services, video services. I've had a Zoom account since at least 2014, if not a little earlier, just due to all of that guy's research and demos and all that good stuff. But voice over IP has just gotten so good in the last several years. There are so many options. Too many, honestly, to list. And some of them are better for larger scale operations like your Fortune whatever companies. I should actually learn what the difference is between Fortune 100, 500, what have you. But like sometimes for those bigger companies, something like an enterprise edition of Ring Central might be the best thing for you. Whereas something like a small organization of two, which I presently work in, something like a Skype phone number or a Google Voice phone number might be a better solution just in terms of cost, logistics, implementation. Do a little digging, do a little research. Google is your friend, and just see what's out there. And based on the number of people that you have, based on the different roles that you have, I think you'll be surprised about what you find. And there's definitely options for voice over IP to live solely on your computer. There are options to bring the app onto your own personal cell phone, smart device of your choosing. And then at least it's a separate number, a separate way for people to get in touch that doesn't involve your personal cell phone number, which I think is so important. For folks that work in the office, a desk phone, again, it's something that just stays at work. Get a cordless if you want. You can walk around with it. Definitely at restaurants, especially, I see that, the person who's the manager might be running the host station and answering phone calls from the cordless phone that's holstered to their hip like a dad with a beeper in the 90s. But yeah, a desk phone, a company-centric phone, I think that depending on your industry, sometimes having a phone that people can call can be very helpful, especially if you're in something like service, like a dentist, a doctor, a restaurant, a grocery store, something with some basic information where folks can get a hold of a human if they really need to, I think is really important. Maybe you as the office manager, receptionist, executive assistant shouldn't be the person answering and fielding those calls, depending on the volume, but having a centralized company phone number so that, again, nobody in your organization or who is formerly of your organization will be getting dozens of phone calls every week, even 6 years, 8 years after having left the company. The work-sponsored phone, if you're in the office, something you can leave at the office if you can, just work out the details with your team, with your manager. Voice over IP, I think, is fine. Then you're not investing in physical desk phones. You're not investing in physical smartphones. It's a little more plug and play. But at the very least, if you're in the office, there should be some kind of way that your company sponsors your ability to communicate with external parties. I think that's really important. So, those are my thoughts for today. Whichever one you might choose or whichever one your company mandates, you can roll calls to your device if you really need to, but do your best to do your best to set and enforce good boundaries. It's way too easy in today's world to be available 24/7, to have that expectation that since we all have cell phones now that we are available 24/7. So I think it's really important to have boundaries about like, okay, I'm going to be in the office from 10 to 6. I'm available by phone, maybe 9 to 7 or something like that. But like, even that's inappropriate. Like set your work hours. Those are the hours that you're available by phone or in person. Set them and enforce them. I think that's so important, especially for folks that are starting new roles. Like come in with those boundaries in mind, discuss them, be as flexible as you need to be, but definitely compromise and come to something that's tenable for everyone, because I think it's really inappropriate when companies are calling you. I mean, the last executive assistant role I had before this, like straight executive assistant. So this would have been late aughts, maybe like 2008, 2009 when I started that job. These folks wouldn't need me for anything while I was in the office. And then the instant I took any kind of vacation, 8 a.m. on a Monday, my first day away from work, getting calls on my personal cell phone. I'm not awake at 8 a.m. on a Monday on my vacation. Truly, just setting those boundaries, taking experiences from previous roles and saying, what will you put up with? What won't you put up with? Adhere to the company guidelines, make compromises with your team. All that's very important. But truly, unless they're paying you on-call wages, you're not on call. Turn the phone off, walk away from it. So, yeah, that's where we're at for this week. I would love to know about your phone setup and preferences. Talk to me. Tell me, are you remote? Are you hybrid? Are you in the office full time? Do you have a desk phone? Do you have a company device? Do you have voice over IP? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Love a good pros and cons list over in this office. There's definitely a larger conversation lurking just below the surface here about best phone options, the company reimbursing you versus a company sponsored device, and corporate phone policies. Honestly, whether it's a desk phone, a voice over IP, anything in between, there's a big conversation lurking right there. So just let me know if you want to dive into the swamp. Let me know if you want to get into the weeds. You can always drop me a line at askanassistant.com. I would love to hear from you. And until next week, take care.